listening to Living with ADHD and CPTSD, available on Apple and wherever you get your podcasts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Living with ADHD and CPTSD. Today I have a guest on my show. Her name is Christine, and she lives near Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We are both Canadians, which is unusual for me. Anyways, she was diagnosed a year and a half ago with hyperactive ADHD, and she really struggled with impulsive response inhibition. She is newly certified ADHD coach, and she is also a neuro-linguistic programming specialist, which is basically helping you get in touch with your subconscious. So, Christine, thank you very much for coming on my show. I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's good to do this show with a fellow Canadian too.
Absolutely.
Dare I say, go Habs, go.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. I'm a Habs fan too, despite the,
Despite the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so ADHD and me. Wow.
Yeah.
What a journey. I was diagnosed, like you said, about a year and a half ago. What you often hear is from people who have been diagnosed is that it does change your life. There are things that also take over, like anger and sadness over all the things that could have, should have, would have, possible.
Absolutely.
All the things, right? So there's a bunch of there's a lot of emotion that comes from it. And
right.
I've had some of that. I've had some of that too. I've had lots of opportunities for career that coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Right.
Opportunities in relationships, again, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Great relationships because of my ADHD that are super fun. And I've had very, very long term with relationships with lots and lots of girlfriends that I've just had in my life for, many, many years. Some of them get it and some of them don't. Some of them are tired about hearing about my ADHD and just want me to be me.
Right.
And so there's a bit of education and awareness that goes along with your brand new education and awareness of what you do for your ADHD.
Absolutely.
So I take it upon myself now to educate people and to, create some more awareness out there in the universe about what it's like. And it's not all 8-year-old boys that are running around flicking papers in school. It's very much different than that, and very different in a mature person who's having a late in life diagnosis. So, I wasn't an 8-year-old boy, but I was an 8-year-old girl, and I did run around class, and my parents had me in sports of all kinds. I lived on a farm. There wasn't time, in my childhood for me to get bored, to sit down, to pay attention, to be quiet. We were go. And when you weren't doing something, you were doing something else. And if you weren't doing something, you were planning to do something. So in my childhood, nobody knew about ADHD back in the day. And so there were a lot of report cards came back. Christine doesn't pay attention. Christine can't sit down. Christine needs to be quiet in class. Christine needs to follow instructions. And over and over and over and over again in my whole childhood, right up until I graduated from post-secondary, went into a master's program and heard that language still and went, I guess this is just the way I am. Here it is.
Right.
But that language took its toll too,
Yeah,
That
I bet it did.
language fills ADHD people with shame
Yeah.
and anger and sadness later on. And so I didn't want to sit in that for very long. Um, and the weirdest thing happened is that after my diagnosis, my parents moved their house and found report cards of my childhood and thought it was could be hilarious to give me my old report cards. And uh,
Yeah.
I cried reading them as a newly diagnosed adult and thought about the coulda, shouldas, and then I burned them
Oh, nice.
because I
Oh,
had to.
wow.
Because
Yes.
it was no longer going to be the reflection of me that I wanted out there in the world. And
Hmm.
employers had my last corporate employer with my big girl job. um, I left with a flaming hairdo out of that job, and
Yeah.
lawyers had to get involved, and human rights legislation had to get involved. They weren't going to fire me because of my ADHD. If you
Yeah,
can
that's
come up
bad.
with a reason
Jeez.
about why you want to fire me and make that a legitimate decision, I can hear that. But when
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to I'm not allowed to come back to my job because of my ADHD. Oh, no, no. Oh, no,
No,
no, no.
that's not
And
good.
again, fast forward.
Yeah.
Fast forward to now. Oh my God, 100% change, 360, 180, whatever you want to call it. I guess it's 180.
Yeah. 180, yeah.
Yeah, 360
360 is
wouldn't be
all the
good.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Let's do a 180.
Yeah.
360s are what you do in your cars in the parking lots, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So 180. I left that employer. I had an opportunity for the first time in 14 years to breathe.
Nice. That's good.
And
Yes.
the ability to breathe is such an imperative piece of how ADHD people can maneuver their way through their lives. They need to breathe.
Yeah.
They need
Absolutely.
to, they need to touch the backs of their hands and take a breath and pause.
Totally.
So I
Yeah.
had some time to do this. And in that time to do this, I, in pretty much ADHD fashion, decided that I never wanted this to happen to someone else. Even
Right.
though it continues to happen, I never wanted to happen to someone else. And I wanted to be the catalyst to get ADHD voices out there
Good.
and awareness and education.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a platform for myself to shut down the noise.
Yes. Always
So
need more help. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. Like my one friend has called me the new Norma Ray of ADHD'ers.
Nice.
Hey,
That's great.
I'll wear that hat any day.
No kidding.
So yeah, I went back to school and I put in the hours, I put in the grind, I put in hundreds of hours of practice and became ADHD coach certified.
Nice.
And I'm so proud. I'm so proud I'm over 50 and my
Right.
learning is never going to stop for me. I am also a certified NLP coach, which is
Yeah.
neuro-linguistic programming. And you and I were chatting a little bit earlier about, the juxtaposition of how neuro-linguistic and programming. So neuro is the brain, linguistic is the language, and
Yeah.
programming is the behavior. So when
Yeah.
you put those three together as a coach and you have all this knowledge plus my whole world of experience with my own
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, my platform in doing this kind of work and shouting from the top of the hills about the value of this and about the value of increasing awareness, that not everyone with ADHD presents the same.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
we all don't run around the room amok like, 8-year-old boys,
Yeah.
which
I'm.
is what a lot
I'm.
of people have that
Yes.
They come from that platform of thinking and look at me and go, "We don't look like you have ADHD." I'm not sure what that's looked like other
Yeah, there's
than
no look.
I'm supposed to look like the ADHD 8-year-old. Because that's your view, that's your view of it, then I've got work to do.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know
So
I'm an exact example of what you're saying. It's that not everybody looks like what the the stereotype for ADHD is. Like most people, when they think of ADHD, they think of, like you said, the 8-year-old boy running around, the person
mm-hmm,
that can't sit still. He's hyperactive.
mm-hmm,
He fidgets a lot, right? Like
mm-hmm,
I was diagnosed as a inattentive ADHD, so my issue is more to do with concentration and focus,
mm-hmm.
and like I often lose focus on a topic, or I forget tasks that I'm doing
Yeah.
and moving. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bit of hyperactivity, but it is primarily inattentive, and so I'm not the type that's constantly moving around and doing like just random stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
as a child, I was like a little rambunctious, but it was not all that much different, in my opinion,
Right.
than in every other kid. It's just
Mm-hmm.
I tended to lose. My downfall in school was I would often get distracted very easily.
Right. But it's not because you're not thinking, because your
No,
brain is going 110 miles an hour.
exactly.
The fact that you're
Yeah,
sitting there while the inner uh, wheel of the mouse, to use
yeah,
metaphors, which I do constantly in my life,
yeah,
so that clients of mine can visualize something from a different point of view. So,
absolutely.
some people will like, oh, well, I'm inattentive, which means I don't pay attention. Well, not paying attention doesn't mean that you're not thinking, because you sure as heck
Yeah,
are,
yeah,
right?
because
You're thinking
that's
about
what
all the
causes.
things.
Yeah, exactly. It's that constant thinking at 1,000 miles an hour that is like not the underlying, but a lot of the reason as to why we're getting distracted is because we catch, something catches our mind and our eye, and we're not just going, huh, and then coming back.
Mm.
It's, huh, and then all of a sudden we can't help but read everything on there, or study it and think about the color and
And do the
like
dive, do the deep dive.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, taking care of the Tim Hortons cup. I'm not just going to look at it. I'm going to read all the stuff on it. I'm going to, oh, an interesting color. It's got this, like it's everything about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the
Like
same when
those
it comes to,
little
yeah.
the grip thing. You've got one on your
Yeah.
cup right now so that your
Yeah.
hand doesn't get burnt.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of info on it, right? Like
There's info on it, but you can take it off the cup and then
yes.
you can rip it apart so that it's a big strip. And then
Yeah.
you can put your pen in all the little grooves of the cardboard. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's the same way with communication. It's instead of saying, I have a black pen and this is what I write with, there's going to be a whole, like, I know that's not the best example, but there's a number of times where instead of being brief and to the point, it's descriptive, and you
Oh,
kind of go
yes.
all over the place,
But you got
and
it from your friend Roger, and Roger
yeah,
got it from the conference that was
yeah,
in Ecuador in 1997.
yeah.
And there he met his wife. And then, so he just found this pen and he thought it would be good for you to give you the pen because of all the memory. It's
Yeah,
just,
exactly. Oh, and it had black and blue ink, and
oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a
exactly.
special pen.
Yeah, exactly. So it's and I know there are people out there that they're sitting there going, uh huh, yeah,
Yeah.
as you're just going on and on and on,
Well,
and
it's the
yeah,
over ADHDs are, notorious over talkers
yeah,
and processors at various levels, depending on where your level of ADHD is.
yeah,
And it's very similar to ASD
yeah.
in
It
that it's a
is. That's true.
spectrum. It's a
Yeah,
spectrum. And I hate the fact that they call it a disorder, um, because it's more about brain. It's more about
Yeah.
function.
Yeah.
It's more about the outcomes. Somebody says, oh, it's behavioral because you can stop it. Hmm. So, okay, Mr. Diabetic,
Yeah.
what does your diabetes look like?
Yeah. No
And
kidding.
you can't describe it. You can
No.
say what kind of symptoms you have, you can say what kind of outcomes you have, but that's the very same thing with ADHD.
Totally. Yeah, exactly. It's just a different set
Yeah,
of parameters, different symptoms, different
I'm on a
structure.
number of groups. I'm on a number of groups that discuss things like brushing teeth and showering and basic care, basic self-care. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do it. We'll get to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, okay, but maybe it's a couple of days ago that you were supposed to get to it. Oh yeah, I'm
Hmm.
getting to it. It'll happen. You know what? At 5 o'clock tonight, I'm going to do that.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
maybe it'll be tomorrow morning. Or oh no, wait, tomorrow morning I have to take out the garbage. So no, it won't be tomorrow morning.
Yeah. I know. The one thing that I'm trying to teach myself and I'm getting better at it is instead of thinking about it and going, okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that soon here. I'll do that next. It's okay, drop what I'm doing and do it. And the key is remembering to come back to what I was doing instead of
Mm-hmm.
just getting caught up in something.
Mm-hmm. And
Because, yeah,
sometimes the key is your partner or a
yes,
person in your life going, um, hey, I've noticed that you haven't had a shower in a couple of days.
yeah,
That's your
that's
person. Your person can say that to you.
absolutely, yeah, exactly.
I need you to take the garbage out because the garbage hasn't gone out for days and days.
Yeah,
Or I need you to bring the bins in because they sat at the end of the street for days and days.
yeah,
Things like
yeah.
that. Things like, you know, your oil, changing your oil. We know it
Ugh.
has to be done.
Absolutely, yeah.
When it gets done is when it's at a crisis. And
Yeah.
this is the best point. You want to bring someone in and manage crisis stuff, pick someone with ADHD. We do crisis
I
really
know.
well.
Absolutely.
You want to get into a T-bone accident and be the bystander and have that first person rush to the scene because they can manage that crisis where other people can be sitting frozen in their cars and in fear. The ADHD person is seatbelt off, door open, sprinting to the scene
Yeah.
because we handle crisis because of a little bit of in, inhibition
Mm-hmm.
that we lack.
Yes, exactly.
where
Holding us
where it
back. Yeah.
doesn't necessarily, we don't take all the considerations, but this person needs help, I'm going there now.
Yeah. There you go. And that's
My
that's
partner is
beneficial
telling
in a
me I
way.
need to shower, I'm going to go shower now.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah.
That's an excellent example. Okay, so let's start talking about this neuro-linguistic programming. How did you what where did you discover this and what made you decide that that would be like a specialty or what you really focus on? And why don't you let's go into it and describe how it works and let's get some examples. Let's give my audience a real good idea as to exactly what this is and how it helps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, like I said a little bit earlier too, so there's three words in NLP:
Yeah.
neuro, linguistic, and programming. What I
Yeah.
said before was neuro is about the brain, linguistic is the language, and programming is the behavior. So when you have all three of these things that come together, you have people like you and me.
Yeah.
Neuro linguistic programming works on anybody.
Okay.
What happens is someone who is really skilled as a facilitator, as a coach, however you want to say it,
Right.
as a coach, let's just say, for the
Yeah.
language purposes.
Okay.
There is a series of things that a coach does at the beginning of a session when working in NLP with a client. And what those things are releasing things like denial.
Okay.
And denial is a big thing because in neuro-linguistic programming, there is 90% of what you say, do, feel is held in your subconscious.
Okay.
10% is your conscious part. 10% is your outward language and your outward behavior. Your language of saying, no, I'm not doing those dishes right now. I'm busy. You're not really busy because you're scrolling, but you're busy.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and not get off track here because it's so easy.
Right.
So
yeah. No kidding.
while you're clearing denial, there's actually, it's a two-person job. So typically, COVID related, I am on a Zoom call and I am in like a full picture situation with a client, and I'm walking the client through various movements while they sit. And it's circular movements with fingers that go on your temples, that go behind your ears, that go on your collarbone, that go 2 inches above your belly button. And some people right now might be going, oh, what a bunch of bougie crap this is. Right. But what happens in the brain is when you've come to a session and you've maybe fought your way through traffic, or you've done a full day at work, your session is at 7:00, you've done a full day, your brain is full. Your conscious brain is full of everything that's happened that day. Yeah. Releasing denial and allowing your subconscious to open immediately clears something in your amygdala, which is part of your brain, which functions as your decision maker.
Okay.
So there is someone who sits in a session with his or her shoulders up around his or her ears. And the more they do this thing, the more they become more open to hearing it. There is a cadence of language that happens with neuro-linguistic programming as well. I'm not nearly as animated in a neuro-linguistic programming session because the rhythm and the cadence of the language has to be a certain way in order for the subconscious to keep opening.
I see. Okay.
Very, very psychological. I would love to have a PhD in psychology to be able to have done a even bigger, deeper dive into this. But my understanding and my practice of it is there are people that can come into a session with these big emotions and they're there to have release.
Right.
So these big emotions are around blame and shame and bitterness and anger and sadness. And what these sessions do is we talk about that stuff. We talk about bitterness, talk about your apathy. We talk about your sarcasm and where that comes from.
Right.
And not being listened to and not being held in a high enough esteem that people will hear you and understand. And there's whole forms of like almost like somatic, which is like a body brain release that happens when we talk about these things, because then they're out there. Then they're no longer held in this 90% of your subconscious because you've released them. You might or not have released all of them, but people tell me they leave a session and we don't talk much after a session is over because people are wiped. It's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of brain work, but it's a lot of release and a lot of letting go of something that's held so deep inside.
No kidding. I see. I get it. I honestly get what you're saying, and it makes sense because people every day. Like I'm one of them. I could have I'm coming home and I've got a deadline, or I'm trying to get back by a certain time because I have a kind of a routine or an idea of what I'm going to do after work, and I'm rushing home and traffic's getting a little backed up, and
you're
I'm
like
starting.
this,
Yeah,
up,
and it's
up,
building.
up.
Exactly. So you're getting shorter and shorter, and you're in that tension's building and the stress is building, and there's all these things that are starting to, and you'll walk in the door, and my first thought is, okay, I need to relax. I can't just go into what I got to do now, because I'm feeling tense. I'm feeling built up. Like I've got this energy that is just wanting to come out, and it makes it difficult to just transition into the next step. And like, I actually get how
But
the
what
process
about,
in a similar way.
and what about if you didn't have that awareness? So many people don't have that awareness. So they come off the road after their commute, they
Yeah.
come home, and the first person they yell at is the dog, or
Yeah.
they yell at a kid or
Yeah.
a spouse. What they really should do is take that dog and go walk that dog around the corner and
Absolutely.
then come back. Because what they're doing while they're doing that is releasing that commuter craziness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know.
So
I had to learn it too. Like
yeah,
it wasn't automatic. Like it didn't just something that all of a sudden go, I have to do this day to day, or otherwise I might do something or say something that I can't take back. And I need to be present. So I have to release. I have to go and be by myself for 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or go outside and release that tension, or relax, or whatever. And then I feel the difference after. But it
yeah.
wasn't like it just was there. I had to be taught. I had to be shown, and learn how to kind of notice it and feel it inside. So yeah, I do see to a large degree of what exactly this is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just wanted to weave the NLP practice into
Yeah.
the ADHD practice as well
Absolutely.
too. Um, and ADHDers have so much inside them around the language they've heard from a very, very young age
Yeah.
about paying attention, sit down, stand up,
Mm-hmm.
don't talk. Why aren't you talking? Why are you crying? Do the dishes. Why aren't the dishes done? Cut the grass. How come you didn't cut the front grass?
Yeah.
So we hear this pattern because of how our brain works as children. I mean, we're not fully formed as humans yet. So we
Yeah.
do take a lot of this direction and a lot of this language, and we really, really internalize it. So here again,
Absolutely.
I run around and I go into this 90% of subconscious, which is where all that nasty language sits.
Yeah.
So we have reactions. We have some people who have ADHD have massive abilities to not control their emotions
Yeah.
because of all kinds of, like, there's all kinds of psych reasons as to why we can't control emotions, or why we can't control our inhibitions, or why we have working memory problems.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things tie into ADHD, but a lot of those things really sit in that 90%. If you wanted to kind of use the body as the metaphor, if you thought about the 10% of a body is your head, and the
Right.
90% is your neck down.
Mm-hmm.
So all the things that hang out in that 90%
Yeah.
sit there and fester and give us that back talk, which I was so famous for as a young child, and
Yeah.
asking
No
the
kidding.
questions. I mean, I've said many times that even in my corporate career, things need to make sense to me. What we're
Yeah.
doing doesn't make sense. Can I be 4 years old here and ask why? Because this doesn't make sense. If you can give me more context, I need context. I need metaphors. I use metaphors like a crazy person in my
Yeah.
practice because it helps people to understand. It helps them to create their own metaphors too. So when they're trying to
Absolutely.
remember something, you and I had a bit of a chuckle earlier about finding the word, and you can't find
Yes.
that word that you want to use.
Exactly. Yeah. And that happens often.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm sure a lot of people out there have that issue too, where they're in the middle of a discussion or they're trying to present an idea or a thought, and it gets interrupted because they can't find that word, and it frustrates them, and it makes them they get stuck.
And what about the chain of language that happens around that? What
Yeah.
about as a 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 year old kid, you heard, shh, don't talk,
Mm-hmm.
don't
Mm-hmm.
cry, don't be, don't do, don't say. It's no wonder we
Yeah.
can't think of a word when we've had our thoughts interrupted time and time and time and time and time again. The
Yeah.
message in our body is there. So then our
Absolutely.
brain, this amygdala, which is our, piece of the brain that helps with this stuff, kind of goes, not today. You're not finding that word because I'm not letting you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So there's it's not all doom and gloom. There are people, many hundreds of millions of people, they say upwards in Canada, they say upwards of 21% of all Canadians have ADHD on one end of the spectrum or another.
Doesn't surprise me.
21%
Wow, that's nearly a quarter of the population. Yeah.
in one stream or another.
Mm-hmm.
And what people often say to me is, yeah, but doesn't everybody do that? Doesn't everybody forget a word? Doesn't everybody like impulsively shop at Walmart? Yeah, not everybody, and not everybody to the degree, and not everybody takes that getting back into your car, getting back into your house after that impulsive shopping at Walmart and beats themselves up for the next 4 days because they've done it
Right.
again.
Yeah, no kidding.
But
I
some of the
know.
most creative, the most musical, the funnest, the plan the best parties are
Yeah.
people who are so creative in their way and with ADHD who think of all the things. So it's not a deficit of attention, not in the slightest.
Mm-mm.
It's an overabundance, if anything. So
Yeah,
imagine
I
if we
agree.
started calling it overabundance disorder.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. That could
And it's
actually
all
work.
about interest. And when it's no, my house is full of things that are no longer of interest, projects that have started. There's one over
Mm-hmm.
here. It's a macrame thing.
Nice. Yeah.
It started to get hard, and then um, I ran out of rope.
Oh, well. Yeah, and I know
And
that's what happens. Yeah.
it's a thing. And I have an amazing partner who um, doesn't go to town on any of that stuff. He understands that, yeah, I understand that thing's not done. I get it. It's there every day for me to see,
Yeah. Yeah.
as well as
Nice.
the collection of all kinds of other things. So he gets it, but I've had to educate and I've had to really bring some awareness into
Yeah.
myself, and then consequently with him as well.
Absolutely. I totally get that. Now, how when you take on a new client and you're going to use this to help them, what would you say, what would be like the starting point, or how would you introduce it to that person for the first time so that they understand, and that it's easy for them, because obviously it's their first time. They're not going to really know what to expect, so
Mm-hmm.
it might be a
Mm-hmm.
little overwhelming for them maybe. So
Right.
how would you do that?
So typically my starting off point is when somebody says, hey, they send me an email or I get a phone call. somebody over Twitter, somebody in over Instagram says, "Hey, I'd like to know more. How can we get
Yeah.
together?" Then I book a what's called a discovery meeting,
Okay.
and I tell people they're 30 to 40 minutes, but they're never 30 40 minutes. They're 60 minutes. Who am I kidding? I
Yeah.
try. But we get to talking. And sometimes and quite often it's a fit because I'm looking for them so that I can assist them. I'm not
Mm.
curing anything. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not curing, but I
Right.
can listen and I can take my training and apply it to what they're saying they'd like to do. So this discovery session, we talk about things. I'm pretty amicable and I will ask the questions. And if there's dead silence on the end, then we can talk about something else if that's too hard.
Right.
But respect and trust is like the two things that are so important to me in that kind of meeting, because I can't get somebody to work with me as a client if they don't respect and trust what we're going to do together, and
That
know
makes
that
sense.
I'm 100% respectful and trusting with what they're going to say to me, because it's going to be deep, because that's
Yeah.
where it sits.
Yeah.
And
Makes,
so
yeah.
we have this discovery session. I send them a contract. In the contract, it's ridiculously long, but it goes into all of the little details about what can you expect. And then in our first couple of sessions, because I don't know you, I might send you a form that's another ridiculously long form that talks about all kinds of things about, how was your childhood? How, how is your work life? How did you get along in school? Do you have friends? Do you have long-term friends? Like, there's a whole kind of questionnaire, and people can fill in all of it. They can fill in the pieces that they like, but it's a real good piece of information for me to know. And
Yeah.
then our first session together um, is talking about the number one thing on their brain, and
Ah.
then we sort of get plans together. I will often, in the very first session, let someone leave the session with strategies already.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Um, ADHD is an interest thing. If
Yeah.
all I did during coaching sessions was talk about the relationship with your mother or your ex-boyfriend, or your father or the uncle that was awful to you, or your dog that died when you were 7,
Yeah.
if all we do is talk about that and we don't do anything to make your future outcomes better, then what's the point?
I could see that. Yes, of
Right?
course.
So
Of course. Yeah.
strategies happen all session long, and sometimes they can be these subtle little nuances of, have you ever thought about, do you ever
Nah.
do this?
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked at this maybe this way?
Interesting. I can
Yeah,
totally see how that would be how that would benefit.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
and then, yeah, then not on the first session for sure, because usually the client's brain is full, full and swimming at capacity.
Yeah. I
Subsequent
can see that.
sessions, I'll often apply homework.
Okay.
I'd like you to read this article. I'd like you to do this assessment. This article we're going to talk about, because it's
Hmm.
directly affecting what you said to me in the first session. Okay. And depending on the person, who the person is, a younger person, maybe who's just out of high school, maybe who's just in university, or they've recently graduated university, they know homework, they're okay with it.
Nice.
So
Yes.
somebody who's maybe a little bit older goes, oh, homework. And they go there from their childhood of when their homework sat in their bag and they never did their homework. So then we call it something else. We call it
Right.
field work. We call it additional items. Whatever. We get creative with the language. And I'll ask them, are you okay with that word? What would you rather call it? And then we
That's
and then we just
yeah.
brainstorm real quickly. because we love brainstorming, because ADHDers are awesome at brainstorming. You want new, fresh
Totally.
ideas in your employment and with your staff, hire ADHDers.
Yeah. Yeah. That
It's
would
why
work.
people are very successful in certain areas, like in
Yeah.
tech and IT.
Yeah. Yeah. Me.
ADHDers and people with ASD excel in those fields because there's
Yes.
constant newness and new approaches that need to happen.
Absolutely. My mind's going a mile a minute during
Mm-hmm.
work, and that's what I do. And I'm very good at my job because I have the ability to always be thinking and always be trying to figure, like check and understand and verify. Like it's not I don't sit there and go, well, let me think about it and then I'll get back to you. It's on the go. I'm
Right.
doing it in real time, and it's doing it for so long, and it's easy. There really
And it
is no
appeals
struggle.
to your inattentive type, which is
Exactly.
why, it appeals to you, which is why you're successful, which is why you like it, which is why you've done it for so long, because
Yeah.
it's interesting, because it's consistently interesting,
Yeah.
because it never stays the same.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you did, the career killers for ADHDers are are the same thing every day, all day.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Mm-hmm.
people like to have that sameness and like to know what to expect, ADHDers included, but they're also thinking. They're also approaching things differently.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
and
I
it's
know.
different for everyone else, and it's the best place to be. And I absolutely love what I do. And I've never, honestly, in my career as working for other people, been able to say it. It's kind of awful, but I've never been able to say, "Damn, I love my job."
Yeah, that's the best part. That's the best thing is being able to say that. It be
Mm-hmm.
because then when you really think about it, it doesn't necessarily feel like a job. It feels like something that you're having fun with, something that
Mm-hmm.
you enjoy. So, because a lot of people have jobs that they do it because that's all they can do, or they don't feel like they can do anything else. So but then it's like it brings them down. It takes their willpower or their that desire to do other things because they're so exhausted by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like yourself or like me, I enjoy doing it so much that at the end of the day, I'm not sitting there going, oh, this job, I wish I could find something else, or I want to change careers. I never think that. It's fun and I look forward to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I also sit with a bit of a background in career development too.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of a fun thing, to pitch ideas to people who are really sad around their
Right.
job and feel like they can't leave and feel like they have no skill and feel like they can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and you absolutely can. You're the boss of you on that. But some people
Yeah.
don't get that about themselves. They think everything else, it's like the tail wagging the dog.
Yeah.
They don't get that the
Totally.
dog wags the tail. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the dog's emotion and
Mm-hmm.
internal thoughts that wags the tail. Metaphor.
Nice. Yeah. Now, on average, like for a client, how many sessions do you usually have with them where like before you start to or I should say they start to notice like that massive improvement or the change where they're going, holy, I didn't realize that it could be that way, or that like they feel something from it. Like what's
Mm.
the average time?
By the end of the first session,
Wow. That's pretty incredible.
there's things you've learned and things that you will walk away with and things to think about by the end of the first session,
Wow.
which, I would typically book someone in for a series of sessions, and usually about 12. We
Okay.
meet once a week. I don't want to necessarily meet once a month. with someone who has ADHD, because then we've both forgotten what's happened.
Yeah.
I do take notes. I do have case notes. But there's the tone and that feeling that if I only met someone once a month, it's difficult, and we spend so much of our time, maybe even 10 minutes, 12 minutes, getting right back into, okay, what are we checking in on again? What do we talk about? What are we
Right.
talking about today? Do you want
Right.
to talk about this anymore? How do we leave
Yeah.
off? Like, it's too much, right? So I like to meet weekly with people, especially at the very beginning for the first 4 sessions. And then
That
we
makes
can decide.
sense.
Every other week is sometimes great for people, and scheduling. I get it. Scheduling. I have international clients as well too,
Mm.
so we have time concerns as well. So,
Right.
hmm, yeah.
Interesting. Very
So
interesting.
you need, as an ADHDer, you need to get something out of every session to keep you interested. I
Yes.
get, I understand that from my own experience, and so from where I sit, some of the best therapy I've ever
Yeah.
had has been things that I've taken something from every single session.
Absolutely. And I get it. I can see how it would have to be that way. Like, because if you have a session where it's like that person ends and they're just like, I didn't see anything from that, then there's a good chance that they will lose interest. Maybe not the next one, but it,
Yeah.
they have to learn, and they have to figure out something, because it's like kind of like curing that desire to learn something, or to,
Mm-hmm.
like the curiosity factor. They want
Yeah.
to figure out something, go, oh cool, I that was really good, that, I got something out of that, and then some of them can obsess about it,
I have a
you know.
client that leans deep into the camera in our session and
Gee.
does the gesture with the brain blowing.
Ah.
He's like, you
Nice.
do this every time. It's like you're inside my head, and
Wow.
you get it. And I say, you're damn right I get it. And then that helps. That helps with like the allegiance to each other, that we're in this together. I'm not talking down to you ever. I say
Yeah.
bad words sometimes in my sessions. Yep. But we get it. Like, it's a bit of impulsiveness. Sure.
Yeah.
But it's also
Okay.
about building that rapport again, and the trust and the respect. 100%, because I know where you are.
Yeah, for sure. I see that. I see that totally. Huh. So, what are some of the challenges that you have when it comes to this, with yourself and then with like your clients? What would be some of the challenges that you experience?
Two very different questions. The
Yeah.
challenges with myself is, this is my own practice. For lack of a better term, right now I birthed this baby,
Yeah.
and it's, for me, it's still in its infancy, and my impulse reigning that I have to do on a fairly weekly basis of not going
Right.
off onto a million different tangents. Yes,
Yeah.
I love working one on one. That's my priority, is working one on one with clients, because it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of like my life's blood right now. I love
Totally.
doing it. It feeds
Cool.
my soul. What also works for me is working with organizations. I work with organizations as well too, and I
Oh,
do
cool.
workplace accommodation work with people who have ADHD and who are
Oh, wow.
struggling in their roles. So I work in kind of like this triangle with the
Mm-hmm.
employer, the manager, and the employee.
Okay.
I guess, no, I guess it's more like a square, because I'm the other person there. Anyway, okay. So there's three people in the organization that
Yeah.
have identified that their ADHD is getting in the way.
Okay. Yeah.
There are things that they do very well in their job, very likely, and then there are the things that are done what someone will say is very poorly, or
Mm,
someone needs supports around that.
yeah.
I want to be very careful too about the language that I use with my clients as well. There's something
Right.
called rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and
Yes.
it's a conversation killer, it is a brain killer, it is
Yeah.
a momentum killer. And so the
Absolutely.
language that I want to use with someone who has ADHD is very not the language that I'm going to use for that person's manager and for HR or for OD or whoever else it is that I'm working with.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I work with this person and I get to know intimate details about their job, about their relationships with their manager, about their relationships with their coworkers.
Nice.
I get to know how they feel about let's say, doing a budget and
Yeah.
how bad they suck at it. Because that's not my words, that'll be their words.
Yeah. That's
And
what they're
and
gonna
that's
say.
why
Yes.
I'm there. That's why I'm there is not to help them with their budget work, but to help them use their ADHD to manage that budget work because
Right.
that budget work is still going to be there because that's your job. That's in your role. It's in your job description. You need to manage your budget. If you
Mm-hmm.
have ADHD and you have maybe a little bit of dyscalculia, which is numbers, which is problems with numbers,
Yeah.
doing a budget probably isn't something that you're going to be able to do alone without supports. So, how do you do that? How do you build the strategies and the checklists? I built 6 pages of checklists with a client to
Wow.
do one practice of the biggest thing that she does, but it was 6 pages of checklists. I don't expect
Holy.
that checklist to be used in a year from now, but I want that checklist to be used every single time you do that thing you do. Let's say it's the budget. There is a
Mm-hmm.
6 page checklist that you're going to go through with all the checks and measures. And then you have to go into one system. Then you have to go into the other system. Then you have to click save. And it is nitty gritty detail.
No kidding.
Click save, close file.
Yeah.
Because if you don't
That makes
click
sense.
save, then all your work is lost and
Yeah.
then your budget numbers are gone.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
if that's the thing that you keep on doing and you don't learn that lesson, having that checklist makes you repeat and repeat and repeat so you get it better, so that it becomes something that you do, so that you don't need to follow every single checklist item in even 3 weeks from now because you're getting it. You're training yourself how to do this the right way.
Yeah.
If I need to
Nice.
bring in the manager and say, okay, so John is having this budget problem and he can't get to this thing. I need to get him over the hurdle with this thing that he doesn't know how to do.
Right.
And then so the manager will explain what needs to be done in that. And then I take that information and transfuse it to John, who then goes, oh yeah, that's right. That's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Working memory,
Yeah. No
right?
kidding.
And
Yeah.
this builds working memory gets built through repetition.
Yes. 100%. That is very true. Yeah.
Especially for
Exactly.
adults. Like there's stuff out there in the ether about how, repetition doesn't build memory in children, that actions and experiences do that.
Yeah. That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not here to debate the facts. I'm here to say, you know, what works for you. So the next time you work in your budget and you've missed things and your manager knows that you're working with a coach. So now your manager says, okay, you've missed these parts and this piece of information is incorrect.
Yeah.
Where was that piece in that checklist that happened? So we
Mm.
work on that. And
I
that's
get that.
usually about 3 months worth of work. And
Wow.
it's maybe once or twice a week. The
Yeah.
employer pays for it. The client does not.
Okay. Good. Wow.
And then there is typically a conversation that I have with all three parties. So with HR, with the manager, and with the client at the very beginning. Maybe not a
Okay.
client yet, um, but I find out what the issue is, what the problem is, so I can decipher if that's really ADHD or not. And
Gee. Wow.
ADHD is never about intelligence, ever.
No. No.
This is not an intelligence thing at all.
Exactly. It's not. No.
It's about interest. It's about making things interesting.
Yes. Absolutely. There's so many examples out there that prove that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So those are the two
That's
areas.
incredible.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so the one-on-one coaching is where I work from, and I also work in the area of workplace accommodations.
Nice. Okay. Excellent. That's fantastic. I wonder how many other people out there are that actually do this, do the same, like similar to what you do. I
I haven't heard. I have a coach and a mentor that I work with as
okay.
well, and she's never heard of it before. She's never heard of this specific niche area. Workplace accommodations, yes. Workplace coaching, yes. But putting those together for greater functionality and better rapport and better job outcomes,
Hmm.
increased awareness, increased awareness for the employer for sure, because there are
Yes.
things that the employer needs to change about the conversations that they have with that ADHD person as well.
Absolutely.
So you need to make sense. You need to add context. You need enrichment in your language and your instructions with someone with ADHD. It's very
Yeah.
helpful to follow up with an email about the things that you've instructed that person to do.
Yeah.
And there's more managers that groan because it's more work. Well, then we talk about then we talk about the cost of recruitment, and we talk about the
Yes.
cost of retention, and then HR's
Exactly.
ears perk up, and then depending on the amount of depending on what rate of job you're at and your salary, it has direct relations to your retention and your recruitment costs.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you spend X amount of dollars for 3 months, pay for this person to coach, so that you don't pay twenty to $40,000 to replace that person in your recruitment costs?
Yeah. That's smart. It makes sense. It really makes like it makes like somebody there should be more employers doing this. It's yeah, it's one of those things that if they were to look at it and see the benefits of it, it would be like a no-brainer to them
Mm-hmm.
if they
And
had
when
the
when
opportunity.
you've got a high performing person, I worked with someone in sales, and
Hmm.
he was a rock star in his sales, and he was well over the 2 million, $3 million in a year in sales in this very niche area where he needed to be at that level of sales.
Right.
And they changed things.
Ugh.
They changed systems, they changed reporting structure, they changed almost everything about his role, and he floundered because his ADHD in his old role made him just work like snapped fingers every day,
Yeah.
on fire his brain, because that's the way his brain worked,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Then they shifted the platform and didn't allow for him to function, and couldn't see why he wasn't functioning
Yeah.
until I said to him, or said to his manager, who was like a VP, had a very frank discussion with him around, like,
Hmm.
you've taken him shoes off and left him on the hot coals. He doesn't
Wow.
know. He
That's a good
doesn't
way
like
of doing
like
it.
he's not he's beating himself up more than you're beating him up about,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. I
he
see the
doesn't get it
logic.
why he doesn't get it anymore. What
Yeah.
he has to do is spend almost 3 hours a day online filling in, like CRM, customer relationship management information about every single call he made.
Right. Wow.
Oh no, dude. Someone who's excelling and making you money, let them go do that.
Exactly. I agree. Why change something that is working so well for him and making you a lot of money?
And
Like,
pay somebody to support them.
yeah,
Pay a an admin person or a sales backup,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Let the two of them have their conversation about what went on in the conversation with their client.
yeah, 100%. I think it's an excellent way to go about it, and it makes so much sense when you really look at it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that conversation that I had with that manager of why don't you hire somebody for $30,000 a year to work with him and let him go earn you millions of dollars and hire somebody for $30,000 a year to take his notes. And it was like to this
yeah.
manager.
Wow, that's that's impressive. It makes me wish there were like 3 dozen more of you. Because
Some
there could
days
be
there
such a
are.
benefit. Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
With the
It's
right cup of
funny.
coffee, I can do anything.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, me too. It's funny you were talking about in the work area, and all in my brain, just as you were mentioning it, I'm going, this could work in relationships because it has a similar, like, it's not relating to money, but
Mm-hmm.
you
Oh,
could put that into a relationship manner because
oh,
it,
I have
yeah,
stories all day. I have stories all day from clients. Um, Super awesome guy, worked in
yeah,
IT, management in an IT company.
yeah.
His wife, they have 5 kids. All 5 kids have ADHD.
Oh, jeez.
So
Wow.
it's a busy little place to be.
No
His
kidding.
wife is neurotypical, the only neurotypical in the house. And his wife
Ugh.
says to him, I need you to do the dishes. And he says, okay, don't,
Yeah.
equal share, equal work, all that stuff. I need you to do the dishes. Halfway, one of these instances, halfway during the dishes, he
Yeah.
decides that he was going to go blow the wall up outside in the garage so that he could build the new doorway. So we did that halfway in between doing the dishes.
Oh
And
my.
he explained this to me is that he wanted to get it started so that it would act as the visual stimulant for him that, okay, so now this is started. So now you got to keep working at this. But the dishes are lost. And
Yeah.
the wife is freaking out,
No kidding.
right?
There's too many examples of that.
There is.
Very
Yeah.
similar. Yeah.
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 I know.
Lots of husbands and wives,
Yeah.
lots of neurotypical partners with an
Yeah.
ADHD'er,
Yeah.
or two of them together,
Oh, yeah.
which is like double dynamo,
Yeah.
where you need to have almost like strategies for both.
No kidding. Absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just 5 days later, that house is going to be a complete wreck because
Yeah.
nothing's ever going to get done
So you know
or
what?
half done.
This guy with the dishes, it
Yeah.
was so exciting for me to see if this little theory of mine was going to work. So he
Right.
told me that he listens to podcasts while he's doing the dishes.
Ah.
And what would happen is the podcast would be over. And that was the point where he said, I got to go blow that wall out in the garage.
Uh,
So there was a very definite, almost like verbal cue that you're done because the
uh-huh.
podcast is done.
Uh-huh. That makes, yeah, I totally see that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
It's,
then what we
yeah.
did was I asked him how long it typically takes him to do the dishes. And he says, we have 7 people in my house. It takes a while. And So I said, okay, so for how long? He said, probably about 35 minutes. If I just go like crazy at it, about 35 minutes. And I said, okay, your homework is to put a playlist together that is 40 minutes long.
Right.
A playlist of all your favorite songs in this playlist, and listen to it, and then go turn it on and do the dishes. Mm-hmm. And you're not allowed to stop doing dishes until that playlist is over. And it worked every single time.
That's incredible. But I can see why.
Break, right? Yeah, like very psychological, right? So there's no break. It's all just songs. All he has to do is stand there and listen to his favorite tunes.
Mm-hmm. Gee. That's so smart, honestly.
And it's 40 minutes, not 35 minutes. So I gave him an extra 5 minutes for maybe sticking around and listening to or sending a text back to somebody. I also forbade that while he was doing dishes, but it happens.
Yeah.
So I gave him 40 minutes. I gave him an extra 5 minutes. And I said, so how does the next session is, how was your homework? He's like, I did it. My wife is so happy with me.
That's awesome. That is
really good. So then we
applied
that to making the kids lunches. We applied that to shoveling the driveway.
Nice.
Right? So the whole thing, repetition, in the nicest way, because you get to listen to all your favorite music.
Absolutely.
And it's not, it's not your wife standing there going.
Yeah. No kidding. And that, it's funny.
Getting angry at all the stuff that's not done.
Yeah, the interesting thing is when I actually was just in a minute right there. I'm thinking this ties back into that negative reinforcement as a child from the parents, always harping on the kid. Why haven't you done your homework? Why haven't you cleaned up your room? Why haven't you, you're not ready for bed? That's the wife.
Why aren't you good enough?
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing how that ties in. Yeah.
Why don't you listen? Why don't you pay attention? Why don't you finish things? Finish something for once in your life.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No kidding. And that negative reinforcement. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's not good. Wow. Well, this was incredible. This was so
fun.
Yeah.
I could talk about this all night, by the way.
I bet you could. No kidding. If we had nothing else to do, without a doubt. Okay, well, everybody, this was a great episode. I'm looking forward to seeing my audience respond to this, and I see big things when it comes to this specific episode, because this is a fantastic information. This is very new and so different than a lot of stuff that I've read and heard. And I've heard a lot, and so this is really good. Well, thank you, Christine, for coming on. This was incredible, and I really appreciate all the information that you've given and the time that you've spent talking about this.
Very welcome. Very welcome. Can I plug my website?
Darn right, yes.
www.indigonlpcoach.com.
Okay, I will definitely have that in the main area of the podcast, but that is the website for Christine. Awesome, amazing. Okay, everybody, if you have any comments or something you want to ask either of us, or something you'd like to mention, by all means you can contact myself. Christine, do you have an email address or something that they can contact
easy.
you?
Yeah, info@indigonlpcoach.com.
Excellent. There we go. All right, and of course with me, it's my email address is livingwithadhdandcptsd@gmail.com. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to this episode, and I shall talk to you guys later. All right, everybody. Thanks for now. Bye-bye.